Rich Paul has risen from selling vintage jerseys out of the trunk of his car to running one of the fastest growing sports agencies in the world, representing some of the world's most famous athletes with an unapologetic swagger and purpose. He's inspired devotion from his clients and disdain and dismissal from entrenched interests, competitors and institutions alike.
I always said the dents in the man's armor show that he's battle tested.
While agents are usually the guy behind the guy or woman, we live in a different world when it comes to star players and their reps. And Rich Paul is a big reason why. He's put the business out front, powerfully making the case that different voices need to be at the negotiating table, not just on the court. I spoke with Rich to find out what the rest of us can learn from a career spent relentlessly being true to yourself and where you came from.
I'm not going to be a yes man to you because you're paying me a fee.
So Rich, first of all, it's really nice to see you. I wish we were together. And let's talk about where you came from. What are the reflections you have as you think about your own origin story and how it plays now and how you think about it in 2021?
Well, I started out the trunk. And so to make it from the trunk to Beverly Hills is a blessing. But I'm not satisfied. I'm not complacent. I know there's a lot of work ahead to be done to continue to inspire and be impactful for those that's coming behind me, despite their skin tone or their gender. You know, my city was very segregated growing up. But my parents didn't teach that, they didn't allow that, and I never wanted to be that way. And I have all type of friends, and I treat everyone the same because that's how I was raised.
So tell me what you're looking at.
So I'm looking at a picture of my dad, young, and my mom and myself. My mom had a drug addiction, and I know every time she tried to break it, it was one day at a time. My mom did end up getting clean. She was a very strong woman. She was the life of the party. She was extremely helpful, to give you the shirt off her back type of person. My dad was always there. He was always Johnny on the spot. He was always very hard on me and my brother and sisters because he knew what the world brought forth. And he was always trying to prepare us for a time when he wasn't going to be around and that we had to navigate throughout on our own. And I couldn't be more appreciative of the makeup and the DNA of these two people, two of the most important people to ever be in my life. And I know I'm making them proud, so that's very important.
Rich learned from a young age how to sell, and early on he identified vintage sports jerseys as a niche. While his personal style, he says, aspired more toward Ralph Lauren, he also liked a good jersey and saw lots of peers did too. One day in 2002, a 21-year-old Rich threw on a Warren Moon jersey, it matched his sneakers, and headed to the Akron airport for a flight to Atlanta. Waiting for the same flight, an already well-known high school basketball phenom named LeBron James. The once and future king complimented the jersey and asked him where he got it.
Can you see this Warren Moon? Can you see this?
That's the one, huh?
Yeah, this the one. Don't ask me why I wore that jersey, but you know, seeing these young men at the gate and striking up a conversation based upon that specific jersey, for that to lead to what's now a 20-year friendship and a business relationship and a brotherhood, it's just fate, you know.
Rich quickly became a trusted friend and advisor, part of a small and influential inner circle. He joined LeBron, Randy Mims, and Maverick Carter, two longtime friends of LeBron, also from Akron, to create LRMR Marketing. Rich curated LeBron's appearances and image and explored acting, music, and producing before settling on becoming an agent. He ultimately joined CAA to work under LeBron's agent, Leon Rose. In 2012, Rich left CAA to start his own agency, Klutch Sports. Last year, it ranked 7th in the value of contracts negotiated at $1.7 billion.
Klutch Sports decides who wins the championship. Klutch Sports decides who the best team in the world is.
So one of the things that becomes clear about your success is the relationship that you have with your clients. And I want to show you something that one of your earliest clients, Tristan Thompson, said about you and get you to react to it on the other side.
I remember the first time I called Rich, I'm like, good afternoon, Mr. Paul. And he's like, hey, what's up, Tristan? I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it threw me out because, like, the first time you meet someone, like my mom always taught me as a kid, especially I'm 16, 17, she's like, have manners, be polite. So I was like, hello, Mr. Paul, this is Tristan Thompson here. And then he's like, hey, what's up, Double T? What's going on? I'm like, okay. I'm like, in my head, I'm like, all right, well, this guy's like, it makes me feel comfortable. I'm like, yeah, what's up? What's going on? Another reason why I got with Rich, especially just because I wanted to have someone represent me that understands my lifestyle, understand what I went through as a kid. Like me being a black man and being represented by Rich Paul, who's also an African-American man. It's huge because what me and Rich always talk about it. We want to find a way to put more people like us in position of power. And I think what Rich is doing is a big step in that. And I think, he's not finished. Everyone thinks like, he's one of the top agents, and that's great. Finally, I know one thing about Rich Paul, he's never going to stop. He always keeps the wheels are always turning. His brain is always working. The man hardly sleeps. I got to find a way to get him some rest. And I'm like, go on vacation, brother. Like, this is too much.
Oh, that was great. Tristan is someone who knows me better than anybody. I've been with him since he was 16 years of age, going back to that time that he described. He came to Cleveland, and we kind of talked, and, he was really young and impressionable about things. And so moving forward, when he got on campus at Texas, he called me one day and was like, bro, I need a car. I gotta find a way to get me a car. And I said, why would you need a car on campus? I said, you're on a basketball team. What do you need a car for?
Yeah.
And he's like, because this person got a car, that person got a car. I said, Tristan, it don't matter what they have. You gotta put blinders on. You're trying to get to the finish line. And so I said, at the end of the day, you have a goal. Achieve that goal, build good habits, and I can guarantee you're gonna be able to get whatever you want. So that was one obstacle we overcame, and so seeing Tristan, he knows me, and I know him. We love each other, and when you have that, it makes me able to do my job better because I can tell him something without worrying about him firing me, or I don't have to create a yes environment.
I want to make sure we talk about that because I think that's a really important thing, and Tristan mentioned it to me, and I've heard you talk about it before, which is this whole notion of you embrace having these tough conversations with these guys. They have been deified in many ways, and yet part of what you do is speak truth to them. How are you able to do that, do you think?
The foundation has to be respect, and you have to respect each other, and if you respect each other, you can have the hard conversations. And so we've had the hard conversations. I've had the conversations where my guys don't pick up the phone for 2 days. And then they call me and say, you know what, bro, you was right, man. And it go both ways. And I say to them, if I'm ever out of line, hold me accountable as well.
Yeah.
Because this is not about you playing a sport. This is about you surviving the game of life.
I wanted to be liked by everybody.
Part of Rich's confidence comes from that tight circle he's a part of, a group that's become famous enough to inspire their own documentary called More Than an Athlete. It was through making that they met the legendary Jimmy Iovine, the multi-hyphenate impresario who produced some of the biggest records of all time, created Interscope Records, invented Beats by Dre with Dr. Dre, and went on to run Apple Music.
I met the crew. I met LeBron, Rich, Maverick, and Randy. And I found it to be really just very, very impressive. They had the right attitude, the right approach. They were together for a long time. It was a real team. What I was shocked about was the lack of infighting, the clear roles. And so I'm not surprised that with that kind of structure, infrastructure, and foundation, that they get things done.
That's meeting Jimmy at a time in which we were all still growing as young men. And as much as he was impressed with us, we was impressed with him.
Yeah.
And this is Jimmy Iovine, and we're sitting in his office. And as he discussed about our roles and the respect that we have for each other, oftentimes we come from a place where there can only be one person, that's the man. And that mentality sticks with you as you climb the ladder. But Maverick and I lived together. Randy lived by himself on the floor below us, and LeBron lived in the apartment next to Maverick and I. And I think one of the things that brought us closer together was the fact that we knew that if push came to shove, we had each other. And so, Jimmy's a mentor of mine, and some of the things he's done, he was always a supporter of our culture.
So I want to show you one more thing that he said, because it builds on exactly what you're talking about. If we can look at one more clip.
If you got Jimmy twice, that's pretty good.
There's an enormous opportunity in African-American culture that is under-resourced, underutilized, and underappreciated in this country. African-American culture is brilliant. It's powerful. The whole world copies it. It's inspirational. It's influential. What you see now is corporations coming around and saying, oh, we need diversity. You don't need diversity. You want diversity. Because this is an extraordinary resource. And what you're seeing now in LeBron's camp with Rich, et cetera, are these things coming to fruition. And I think it's just the beginning.
That's a big statement, and I feel like you are at the nexus of something important that Jimmy identified there.
Yeah, I agree. Diversity is something you want. Diversity is something that I want as the CEO of Klutch Sports Group. When you talk about black culture, I think a lot of times people get so caught up on the color versus the talent, and versus the genius that these men and women have within. And when you evaluate the challenges they had to overcome and to still be successful, he's right. Like, I want that person. Don't give me the person who had a roadmap and who was able to have 10 different people pick up the phone call and make sure they was hired or make sure they was accepted to this university. Give me the person who had to fight for everything, who was evaluated and critiqued differently from their peers, and they still persevere and still give me that person.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Even as institutions and individuals undertake a long overdue reckoning around race, inequality, and systemic injustice, there's still a ways to go. In 2019, the NCAA made a new rule requiring agents representing student athletes to have a bachelor's degree themselves, which many saw as directed right at Rich, to the point where LeBron and others derisively called it the, quote, Rich Paul rule.
How racist it was to require, that this guy has a 4-year degree of college education.
Rich wrote a stinging rebuke in The Athletic explaining how this move would discourage people from poor backgrounds, often people of color, from entering the industry. 6 hours after the article was published, the NCAA backed down. It was a striking example of what's coming at him almost every day.
I have no doubt that there were agents behind the scene that were pushing for that in hopes that it would compromise somebody like a Rich Paul.
There are a lot of people who have come at you hard, and have tried to discourage you, and obviously in some ways it's out of their own self-interest, but I can't imagine that feels good or is easy.
I always said the dents in the man's armor show that he's battle tested. And if you were able to see my armor, Mako couldn't fix it.
It's got some dents. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, and it was a fight. No one wants to give you credit for what you achieved with LeBron, right? But at the same time, it's like, oh, well, if you go with them, it's going to be all about LeBron. And it's a small ecosystem, so you got assistant coaches that's saying things to parents. It's all discouragement. And I think that's the mentality of, if Rich Paul is on top today, in order for me to be on Rich Paul's level, I got to push Rich Paul down, or I got to convince this media person to say something bad about Rich Paul. But, I think over time, people start to stop listening to the discouragement and to the false narratives and to the critique of others, and really start to take things for what it really is and take me for who I am.
So as we wrap up, sort of on that point, I did want to ask you, when it comes to sports, it does feel like we have seen something meaningful shift over the past few years, certainly over the last year. And one of those shifts has been who's pulling the levers of power in many ways. We seem to be moving away from a point, especially in the NBA, where white general managers sort of have the final say. We have players who are empowered in many different ways. We are starting to see ownership changes and owners think about their teams differently, their players differently. Do you agree with that? Is that something that you have seen? Because you are in those corridors of power in many ways.
I think it varies. I do think there's an open-mindedness more today than it was of yesterday. Yesterday's owners versus today's owners, yes, they're definitely different. From an executive perspective, we still have a long way to go, but they're trying, they're trying. And that's all you can ask for. All you can ask for is effort. Acknowledgement, effort, understanding, and a willingness. It's a different time. It really is. And I do think that going forward, the world will be different. And there will be an ability to be okay with the skin tone of somebody being different than yours. And the sun would definitely shine brighter if we can ever get to that point. I couldn't be more appreciative about what we've been able to build over the years. I'm blessed to represent the guys that I do, no matter what pick they were. They're all great young men. We support each other. And I know this word is very cliche, but we are a family. We want to see each other win, and we just really want to see each other do better.